a small log cabin in the woods of Kentucky, a boy named Abraham Lincoln was born on February 12, 1809. His family was poor, and life was hard. His father, Thomas Lincoln, was a farmer who worked with his hands. His mother, Nancy Hanks Lincoln, died when Abraham was just 9 years old. Abraham grew up surrounded by silence, nature, and struggle. He didn't go to school much, less than a year in total. But young Abraham loved books. He read anything he could find, Bible verses, poems, history, and stories. He often walked miles just to borrow a book. He read by candlelight after long days of work in the field. People around him didn't see anything special. He was tall, quiet, and often sad. But inside, something burned, a desire to learn, to rise, and to make a difference. As he grew older, Abraham realized that he wanted more than farming or chopping wood. He wanted to use his mind. He moved to the town of New Salem, Illinois, and started working different jobs: store clerk, rail splitter, and surveyor. Then he found something he loved: speaking. Abraham had a gift for telling stories and explaining ideas in simple words. People would gather just to hear him talk. His honesty and wit won hearts. He felt called to lead. In 1832, he ran for the Illinois state legislature, but lost. It hurt. He was poor and unknown, but he didn't give up. He studied law on his own and passed the bar in 1836. He became a lawyer, and people respected him because he was fair, kind, and wise. Even as Abraham found success in law and small politics, he doubted himself. He faced many losses and heartbreaks. He fell in love with a woman named Anne Rutledge, who died young. He later married Mary Todd, but their relationship was full of tension and sorrow, especially after they lost their young son. He battled depression. At times, Abraham didn't want to go on. He would sit for hours, deep in thought, feeling the weight of the world. He was called many times to higher positions in politics. But fear, sadness, and uncertainty made him hesitate. But deep down, he still believed he had a role to play. Abraham's mentor wasn't one person. It was his own inner voice, shaped by books, faith, and values. He admired the Founding Fathers and read deeply about justice, freedom, and equality. He studied the U.S. Constitution and was especially inspired by the idea that all men are created equal. He knew that slavery was wrong, and though the country was divided, he felt the nation needed a leader who would stand for what was right, even if it was hard. His heroes became his guide, and slowly, the lawmaker from Illinois prepared for his biggest journey yet. In 1860, Abraham Lincoln ran for President of the United States. Many people thought he couldn't win. He had little formal education, no money, and didn't come from a powerful family. But his simple way of speaking and his deep belief in unity won over people across the North. He didn't speak with fancy words. He spoke from the heart. When he won the election, the country was already falling apart. Southern states didn't accept him as president. They feared he would end slavery. Before he even took office, states began to break away from the Union. The Civil War was coming. Abraham Lincoln stepped into the White House, not in triumph, but in trouble. The real journey was just beginning. As president, Lincoln faced the darkest time in American history, the Civil War. The country was tearing itself apart. Brothers were fighting brothers. More than 600,000 people would die. Lincoln was tested every day. Many in his own party didn't support him. He was mocked by newspapers, doubted by generals, and threatened by enemies. His life was in danger. But he never gave up. He made powerful allies like Frederick Douglass, a former slave who helped shape his views on freedom. He worked with generals like Ulysses S. Grant to bring the war to an end. He faced painful decisions. Soldiers died by the thousands. He had to lead with both strength and sorrow. In 1863, he gave the Emancipation Proclamation, declaring that all slaves in the rebelling states were free. It was risky. It was bold. But it was right. He began turning the war from a fight to save the Union into a moral fight for freedom. As the war continued, Lincoln grew more tired, more aged, and more burdened. The White House felt cold and quiet. He visited hospitals, comforted wounded soldiers, and carried the grief of a nation. He knew that winning the war wasn't enough. The country had to heal. In 1863, he gave the Gettysburg Address, a short speech that became one of the greatest in history. In just 272 words, he reminded the nation why it must stay united and honor those who gave their lives. He said that this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. This was Lincoln's deepest belief, and it became his mission. The final years of the war were brutal. Lincoln was reelected in 1864, but the country was exhausted. Victory felt close yet distant. The South was crumbling, but hatred was still strong. Lincoln worked day and night. He pushed for the 13th Amendment to end slavery forever. He met angry congressmen. He faced opposition from every side, but he stayed calm, kind, wise. Finally, on April 9th, 1865, the Civil War ended. The Union was saved. Slavery was outlawed. Lincoln had achieved what many thought was impossible. He had brought a broken country back from the edge. Lincoln's reward was not gold, power, or comfort. It was something deeper: peace and justice. He saw the dream of equality begin to take form. He had led with humility, kindness, and courage. People saw him not just as a president, but as a moral leader. He visited freed slaves. He told the South he wanted malice toward none and charity for all. He didn't want revenge. He wanted to rebuild. The nation finally began to breathe again. But the road back to peace would be short for Abraham Lincoln. Just 5 days after the war ended, he went to a theater with his wife to watch a play. There, on April 14, 1865, he was shot by an assassin who hated his vision. He died the next morning. The nation mourned like never before. People wept in the streets. Even those who had once opposed him now called him a hero. Abraham Lincoln's life reminds us that even in the darkest times, one person can make a difference. You don't need to be born rich. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to believe, work hard, and never lose hope. He started with almost nothing. He faced loss, rejection, and fear. But he rose through it all, guided by honesty, compassion, and courage. In the end, Abraham Lincoln's journey teaches us a powerful truth. A hero is not born, but built, through trials, failures, and an unbreakable will to rise.